My name is Agnès Callamard. I am the United Nations Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial, summary and arbitrary killings. And what I do know about the harassment and the threats against BBC Persian services journalists and their families is extremely alarming. I have received repeated allegations, demonstrated proof, in fact, that the journalists living abroad and their families in Iran are the object of threats, that they are targeted for surveillance. The families themselves have been arbitrarily arrested and imprisoned. A great deal of pressure is being put on the family to convince the journalists to return. Families have been banned from traveling, so that some of them have not been able to meet with their children for 4 years. The extent and the nature of these targeting is extremely cruel, and also maybe strangely completely ineffective. BBC Persian services are not going to stop because of these targeting and those attacks, and I know from having spoken with many journalists working for BBC Persian services, and none of them will stop speaking up and reporting and investigating according to the best standard of journalism. So it is cruel, but it is ineffective. It is a violation of Iran international obligation, and it is frankly pretty stupid. The lack of vision behind those targeting, the lack of understanding of how international broadcasters work are mind-boggling. But for the purpose of my speech to you today, I want to highlight how the cruelty of what is being done against those families and against the parents in particular who are unable to see their children or who feel the pressure placed upon their children. I can only imagine how hard it is for the journalists themselves living abroad to resist the temptation of saying no, I'm going to give up, to resist the temptation of returning because of fears for their families. This kind of cruel focus on family life, to me, is what really is making me very, very angry. It is an attack against dignity, human dignity. It is potentially an attack against the right to life, because some of the threats are actually death threats. It is an attack against family life. It is an attack against the right to privacy through surveillance. And of course, it is also an attack against freedom of expression and freedom of information. I am in awe with the journalists of BBC Persian services who continue to work in spite of this level of cruel threat and harassment upon them and upon their family. I am in awe with their determination to continue producing the best journalism possible for their audience in Iran and outside. And I call upon the international community to ensure that the targeting of BBC Persian services, of their journalists and of the families of their journalists become a true priority for the international community. In the midst of everything that is happening right now in relationship with Iran, and indeed in the relationship with the Middle East, it may be easy. It may be almost logical to forget that particular aspect of what's happening and the targeting of BBC Persian services. I am calling on the international community to realize how important BBC Persian services are for Iran, for Iranian people, and more generally for the free flow of information internationally. And I think we really need to prioritize the protection of that service, the protection of the people who work for that service, and the protection of their families, and make it a real international agenda issue.